Shabbat Shalom, family. It's your boy Solemn Prophet here with Professor S, and this is Shabbat Talk. Tonight, we are going to be sitting back and listening to this information that the brother's about to bring out. I'm gonna take a back seat, let them drive. It's your show, brother.
All
right. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Drop a comment. And like I said, it's on you, bro. I'm about to go ahead and hit this behind the scenes, give you access if you need to share your screen or whatever. And we can go ahead and get cracking.
Okay, so Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Shabbat Talk. We're going to go through an article about how to calculate when the new moon is. Now, this is going to be going off the understanding of conjunction being new moon, right? I can go into a couple reasons why I go with that assertion, but you know, if you're looking for the first visible crescent as being new moon, what's going to happen there is inevitably, at least once every couple of years, you're going to have a cloudy night and you're not going to be able to observe it directly with your eye. And that's one of the reasons that I would say that conjunction would have to actually be new moon, because the calendar of the Most High is not going to be something that's going to be thrown out of whack just because there's clouds in the sky, right? Exactly. His calendar is very precise, and he wants us to be able to keep it regardless of weather conditions, right? So I am going to share my screen. We're actually just going to read through this article. It's a very well-written article, and we'll go into a few additional scriptures to go along with it. But yeah, so let me share my screen real fast. So here we go. Calculating conjunction. No computer, no problem. I'll probably comment a little bit more on this as we read through it, but this is just from their perspective. And I've got to say, I really love World's Last Chance. They have some wonderful material. Their calendar is spot on. A little disclaimer, they have a few minor doctrines that I may not necessarily agree with 100%, but like I said, their calendar is spot on, and they're really genuine folks there. So here we go. So no computer, no problem if you're trying to calculate new moon day. So for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, even understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and divinity. Romans 1:20, Restored Names Version. What a blessed time to live in this precious but fallen world. Knowledge is increasing at unparalleled speed, and the guidance of Yahushua's Holy Spirit is refining and preparing all of his Father's children who are anxiously awaiting his return. Every pillar of truth will be restored, and we see that it is. It is. I've noticed, you know, since I've been keeping the moon Sabbath and the Luni-Solar calendar. Initially, I was met with almost nothing but opposition, and it was like earlier this year, strangely enough, that I started coming across a lot of people that are just recently waking up to it, and I was, you know, so all praises to
more and more every day.
Yeah, just wonderful. It's wonderful. People are they're coming to understand this. So yep. WLC, or World's Last Chance, has been promoting his Luni-Solar calendar for some time. However, we lament and repent of the fact that we were initially blinded to the correct method of the beginning of the month, which is the most important part. We no longer believe that the day after the first visible crescent is the new moon day. After much prayerful study, WLC has come to the conclusion that the only lunar phase that can be the new moon is the moment immediately following the dark phase, otherwise called astronomical new moon or conjunction. This conjunction is based primarily on two facts, or conclusion. Conclusion is based on two facts. One, the moon becomes illuminated immediately following its conjunction with the sun. The fact that this cannot be seen does not negate the reality that the moon is now revolving. So it's gaining light whether you can see it or not. Because if you have an app on your phone or on your computer that tells you what the percentage of light is, especially if it's real precise and it goes out to 2 or 3 decimal places, you'll notice that it's got light on it even long before you can see it. Usually it doesn't become visible until it reaches about 2.5% to 3%, right? Up until that point, it's usually invisible, but it's still gaining light, right? Which is what Enoch says. And I'll go and just read that real fast. That is in the version of Enoch I'm reading from, because I know some of them have a different chapter and verse system. But the version that I'm reading from, it's chapter 77, verse 14. It says, and when it is wholly extinguished, its light is consumed in heaven, and on the first day it is called new moon, for on that day light is received into it, right? So it starts gaining light immediately following conjunction. And then conjunction happens at a specific point in time for everyone on Earth. That's another really important thing there, because if you're going by first visible crescent, you can actually have your Sabbaths falling 2, sometimes 3 days apart, depending on where you live and everything, because it might have been visible here, but it's not visible here, and so these people are doing it the next day or however, and by doing conjunction is the same everywhere in the world. So that would place everyone's Sabbath occurring in the same 24-hour period, and everyone's new moon occurring in the same 24-hour period as well, worldwide.
Good point.
These two facts make the moment immediately following conjunction the most appropriate candidate for the biblical new moon. Using the dawn after conjunction for your specific area is the only method that World's Last Chance is aware of that can unite the whole world on one period of 24 hours. In other words, all countries of the world will experience the arrival of the new moon day within the same 24-hour period, and hence Sabbaths as well. So the total eclipse, there's a total eclipse. I actually was fortunate enough to be able to see a total eclipse, and it was pretty spectacular. The waves on the ground were just like so cool. It was neat. But that actually happens every month. It just happens in different parts of the world every month. So WLC believes that the dawn for your location after UTC conjunction is when New Moon Day begins for you. Again, conjunction takes place at a specific time, and it is the same moment for everyone on Earth. So there we go. So it's not dependent on whether it's cloudy this night and if it becomes visible in your area. It's just it's the same for everyone, right? It is generally recorded in coordinated universal time, or Greenwich Mean Time. You simply hang on a second.
Yeah, these are some good points that the brother's bringing out.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
Okay.
I apologize. You simply need to convert the time given in UTC time to your local time. Example, conjunction occurs on January 11th, 2013 at 1944 UTC. For Cairo, Egypt, that's 2 hours, you add 2 hours. Conjunction occurred on January 11th at 2144 or 9:44 p.m. This would mean that the new moon day began on January 12th at 5:27 a.m. astronomical dawn, right? For your convenience, WLC has published all future conjunction dates up to 2023. I believe they actually have more than that. We could click on this link, but we'll just, whatever. So now you know the time of conjunction for your location. You can look it up, figure out where you are in relation to UTC time, add or subtract the appropriate number of hours, and that's when conjunction is, or that's when the new moon happens for you, and then it would be the following dawn would be new moon day. Now you know the time of conjunction for your area, but when is the cutoff point? Scripture is clear that a day begins at dawn. We won't beat that dead horse. I think a couple weeks back we sufficiently proved that.
Efficiently.
And I was even just blown away by how many examples of that in Scripture there really are. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
But anyway, we won't keep on that. But, and in keeping with this biblical premise, WLC employs astronomical dawn, hereafter referred to as dawn, for the end of one date and the beginning of the next day. With that being said, this point in time also serves England.
So for those of you who are not familiar with UTC or GMT, these are different timekeeping systems that allow for like universal travel, universal trade. The military uses these different times as well. It's already on the 24-hour count. Military does count theirs on the 24 hours. So like 2144 is 9:44, and 1944 would be 7:44 p.m. It's just on a 24-hour period, as opposed to going to 12 and then resetting and starting from 12 and going back up to 12. But that's in terms of the counting. But yeah, getting back to.
I'm back now.
Yeah.
Thanks for covering for me there.
I got you.
Okay, so with that being said, this point in time also serves as a fulcrum for the new moon, for when the new moon day begins. If conjunction happens before dawn, then new moon day begins at dawn. If conjunction happens after dawn, the new moon day begins at the following dawn. This methodology truly allows Yahweh and the celestial system that he set in place to be the arbiters of time and to allow him to create the dateline. That's another really good article right there as well, the International Dateline.
Yeah.
But we'll go on. Example, once you have converted the UTC of conjunction to your local time, if conjunction happens before dawn on February 10th for your location, then just a few minutes before when new moon day begins at dawn on February 10th on your location. Even just a few minutes before. If conjunction happens after dawn on February 10th, even just a few minutes after, then new moon day begins the day on February 11th for you. Thus, the entire world will have begun new moon day in the same 24-hour period. Some objections have been raised against the idea of using conjunction as a reference point for beginning the month. Many lunar Sabbatarians insist on relying solely on visual sightings of the moon to determine the month, determine the month start, even though history shows that calculation played an integral role. Perhaps the most common argument, and an objection that WLC espoused only a short time ago, is that one cannot actually see the event of conjunction. Therefore, it must be dismissed. However, as we just explained, solar eclipses are visible conjunctions. So actually, they can occur or occasionally be seen, and they are very predictable. Examining artifacts and methodologies used by the ancients reveals that the beginnings of the months, as well as their durations, were known long in advance. The formulas needed to predict the motions of the moon and sun differ very little from the ancient methods. The mathematical formulas are the same. So, you might be saying, well, our modern technology is great for predicting the new moon, but just how did the ancient Hebrews accurately predict the Luni-Solar conjunction? Now,
So, for those of you at this point, for those of you who have seen our previous Shabbat talk when we covered the topic of 2 new moon days, and we talked about it being 2 new moon days on 30-day months, not 29-day months. This, I think, from reading what he's saying, because this is the first time I've seen this article myself, so I'm in the same boat as you guys. I'm along for the ride as well. But from what I'm reading here, if you were waiting on the visible crescent of the moon to then observe new moon day, you're missing out, because on a 30-day month you're gonna have 2 consecutive days of no light on the moon, because it's gonna become dark, which is letting you know that that month has now been completed, and now we are getting ready to enter into a new month. But for that one day in between, there's still no light. And you're like, okay, well, I'll hold off until I see the light, and then that's going to be new moon day for me. But what we're trying to explain, and what WLC is explaining in his article, is that no matter what you see, light is gaining on the moon regardless. So whether you see it or not, you know what I mean? That's what's happening. And so, as we proved in that video, the ancients, the Hebrews, they observed 2 new moon days on those 30-day months, even though there was no visible moon to be seen, no visible light, because they understood the moon's phases and how it worked. So just keep that in mind. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please, please, please go and watch the video. I'll put it at the end of this video, and I'll put it in the description below. Well, I'll try to remember to put it in the description below, because I forget sometimes. But I'll definitely put it on the end screen. 2 new moon days. Please check that video out.
and that's, I was going to point that out as well, that you know, this apparently is how they knew, because when David and Jonathan were talking, and it says, "Oh, tomorrow's new moon," and Saul's going to expect you to be having dinner with him, right? How would they have known that if it wasn't that they had calculated it in advance?
Exactly.
They had to have. So, and there's also archaeological finds. I tried to find a picture of it. I couldn't find it. A while back, I had seen a archaeological find that they found somewhere in Jerusalem. It was like a bronze thing for measuring things in the sky, and it had like a wheel on it or something. It was all in Hebrew, and basically you take the measurements and then you turn it or something, and it would tell you exactly time or whatever, or how many hours or whatever the case was. I couldn't find that. It was a discovery that was made, so clearly they were doing that. I believe the sighting of the crescent, going with conjunction, you will always have the first visible crescent be seen or visible, assuming there's not clouds. You will always pretty much have it visible the night of the new moon day. So whatever new moon day is, that night you'll be able to see the first crescent, and then that tells you, oh, okay, now your work week is starting. So, so continuing on with the article here, yes, our varying modern technologies make for very effective aids in finding conjunction, and yet even the simplest and most common household tools can be employed in determining the time at which conjunction takes place. Yahweh has given his faithful living today a plethora of sophisticated tools and tested knowledge for studying and understanding the machinations of the heavens. We can and should use everything available to aid in our comprehension of the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. Being that the movements and phases of the moon are very precise and dependable, it makes them function just as a giant clock in the sky.
Facts.
Mhm. We can observe the moon's phases as they wane from the last quarter phase to the ever-shrinking crescent and measure the decreasing distance between them and the rising sun in the east, instead of only a single opportunity to sight the first visible crescent. That's another thing with calculating this. You have about a week that you can calculate this. You could actually do it more than that, I guess, but you've got a week of making measurements and doing calculations that that can corroborate your previous calculations. Whereas with sighting first visible crescent, you've literally got one night to do it, and if it's cloudy for 3 days in a row, I mean, you got a big rainstorm or something for 3 days in a row, how are you going to see it, you know? So there's that. But we have the ability to perform several measurement sightings in the days after the Sabbath on the 22nd of the lunar month. The measurements are accomplished best around or slightly before the arrival of the sun. Here are the steps. So, while holding a measuring tape or ruler that is graded in centimeters and held at arm's length, measure the angular separation between the sun and the horizon and the waning crescent moon. Take several readings and record them. Just be sure to measure from the center of the sun to the center of the moon. 1 centimeter equals 1 degree of angular separation.
Ooh.
So with a measuring tape, you can do this at arm's length. The way that our eyes are designed, and I won't go into a whole lesson on how the angles of things at different distances hit the cornea and retina and everything, but the way our eyes are designed and the proportions of our bodies when our arms are when they're stretched out completely at arm's length, it makes to where 1 centimeter equals a 1 degree of separation. In the absence of household tools, and because we are fearfully and wonderfully made, it's wonderful that they put that there, all anyone truly needs is their hand. When viewed at arm's length, your hand and fingers make perfect measuring tools for angular separation. Because our body's proportions are scaled to the order of all creation using the golden mean, it makes no difference what your physical stature is. Positioning one's arms at arm's length or hands at arm's length provides a surprisingly accurate tool for measuring the angular separation or distance in degrees between the sun and the moon. So you can actually measure it with your fingers. A person's pinky finger viewed at arm's length is very close to 1 degree angular separation. The index, middle, and ring fingers together represent a 5 degree separation, while a clenched fist represents 10, 15, and 25 angles can be measured using the distance between the pinky and the index finger and pinky and thumb, respectively. For greater accuracy, be sure to measure between the two inside edges of the sun and the moon. So, right here. Now I will say maybe it's because my hands are a little small or whatever. I've got a little ruler right here with centimeters. Right here it shows your spread open hand, right? That your spread open hand is 25 degrees. That would mean it should be 25 centimeters. My hands are a little small. Mine gets to like 21 centimeters. So you would want to make those measurements just to be on the safe side. But when you have a centimeters, your pinky finger is about 1 centimeter wide. Right here with the 5 centimeters, you got your index, middle, and ring finger. It's about 5 centimeters, right? Yeah, it's the background's kind of fuzzing it out, but there you go. See, so you make these measurements, but basically, once you know what they are, you've got it, and forever you can always look up. You don't even need a ruler. You can look up and measure the distance between the sun and the moon, right? So you measure that. Once you figured that out, it's got that there. So, see, the next step is relatively simple math. Here's a brief explanation of the formula. It takes the sun 24 hours to make one complete circle, 360 degrees over the Earth. This equates to 15 degrees per hour. The moon, however, takes approximately 24 hours and 50 minutes to make one complete circle. This equals 14.5 degrees per hour, right? This means that the moon loses 0.5 degrees on the sun every hour. Said another way, the sun gains 0.5 degrees on the moon every hour. Consequently, the moon loses approximately 12 degrees every day, or 0.5 times 24. This is why a lunar month, the period from one conjunction to the next, is about 29.5 days on average. And so 360 degrees divided by 12 degrees per day equals approximately 30 days to complete one cycle. And they're using rounded numbers. So for a visual explanation, and this is a good article, we might actually want to go on to that after we're done reading this. Flat Earth luminaries, sun, moon, and stars explained. But now back to our measurements. Take the average reading and divide that number by 0.5. The number of degrees that the sun gains on the moon each hour. The resultant number reveals how many hours from the time of the measurement until conjunction. Then, if necessary, divide that number by 24 to see how many days until the conjunction. For example, you've accurately measured that the sun and moon have an angular separation of 25 degrees. Simply divide 25 degrees by 0.5. The number of degrees the sun gains on the moon every hour, which equals 50. This is how many hours until conjunction. And it tells you how many hours until conjunction right there. Easy, 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 easy. Then, if necessary, you can also divide 50 by 24, the number of hours in each day, to see how many days it will be until conjunction. 50 hours divided by 24 is 2.1 days away from conjunction at the time of the measurements, right? And if you do this every day, even if you end up at the end of the month with 2 or 3 days of clouds and you can't see anything, you still got accurate measurements. And then you can double check after New Moon Day, after what you calculated for New Moon Day, you can double check and see that the crescent is in fact visible at some point during that nighttime. So there's all these checks and balances with this calendar, actually, making it not only precise but easy to confirm. Right? So we can rest assured. We can rest assured that the ancient peoples of every culture had a much greater understanding of the heavenly luminaries than the average person does today. Yahweh's Holy Spirit is restoring in our heavens or in our hearts every divine institution. Yahweh has providentially designed each of us with the tools and mind necessary to calculate the time of conjunction with ease and accuracy. All praise to Yahweh and his blessed Son. And then they finish up with this quote from Psalms, which is great. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that thy soul knoweth right well. For you formed my inward parts, you covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul may know. My soul knows very well. So, we're made to be able to do this. This is not something where we need to have a computer. I mean, it's easier to have a computer for sure. It's easier to look at an app on your phone and see, oh yeah, it's going to be new moon. Here we go. But there's probably going to come a time in the near future where we don't have that luxury, and being able to calculate this and keep the calendar properly is going to be without the aid of technology and other such tools is going to be important. So maybe we can go to this. Is there any questions on that? I mean, did that make sense?
No, it made great sense. It made great sense. I didn't even know that you could break it down on a mathematical from the angular separation in degrees on that type of level, right?
Yeah.
I knew that because I don't know if you came to the Luni-Solar after World's Last Chance introduced it, or you did it before them, but I came after, right? So when I first came to the understanding of the calendar, I was using their app, right? It was a crutch. It was like, the training wheels for me.
Yeah.
And then what I noticed was that the months never change. They're always the same. You're going to have a 29-day month, and then you're going to have a 30-day month, and then a 29-day month, and then a 30-day month. It never switches up. It never flips. The Most High's calendar, like the article said, is a clock. It's like a clock in the sky that nobody can touch. Well, you don't need to necessarily look at the clock every 5 seconds to know what time it is.
Yeah.
If you looked at the clock at noon and you knew that it's been a few minutes, then you know that, it's probably somewhere between, 12:03, 12:05. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily have to wait or keep your eye focused on the clock to know a general idea. People say, hey, what time it is? Even if you're not looking at a clock or you don't look at your phone, you knew the last time you looked at the clock was approximately 20-30 minutes ago. And you're like, it's about 12:30. And then you look at your phone, or you look at a clock and it's like 12:25 to 12:35. You were really close. You were right there, right? So what I've learned is the Most High's calendar is the same way, right? Since every month is exactly the same, right? It's either 29 months or 30-day months. Then once the month begins and you begin your count, it's even easier if you're going directly from a Sabbath day. But once you begin your count, there's going to be New Moon Day that kicks off the month, and you're going to have your 6 work days and then your 7-day Sabbath. So what I can do is I forecast, right, without even having a look at the app now. If my Sabbath falls on a Wednesday, then I know. Well, if I'll go from New Moon Day just for this example. If my new Moon Day falls on a Wednesday, then I know that the next 4 consecutive Wednesdays will be New Moon Day. And if that month is a 29-day month, then I know that the following New Moon Day is going to be the following Thursday on that 4th consecutive week. That's going to start the next month. If I know that the next month is a 30-day month, then I'm going to skip a day and say, instead of Thursday, New Moon Day will now fall on a Friday. So, therefore, I can project and predict when New Moon Days will be, when Sabbaths will be, And then all it is basically paying attention to the time of day on that particular day. So if I know I just hit my 4th Wednesday and I'm like, all right, this is Shabbat. This is the last Shabbat, right? The last Shabbat of the month, right? That's the last day of the month. So the month is about to come to an end. So while we're on that Shabbat at evening, I know based on calculations and looking at the calendar that the following day, if it's a 29-day month, that the following day is going to be New Moon Day. Because the moon is going to tell you what the next day is going to be. Like it said, from dawn. We know the biblical day begins at dawn. So and that's how I've always just done it. But this is amazing because you can literally get it down to the precisely. Like if you're out in the wilderness, precisely.
Yeah, within the accuracy of an hour.
Exactly. You know, my method is basically by day. I know by day that, you know, this is going to be the Sabbath, or the Sabbath is 3 days away or 4 days away based on when the new moon day was, or based on when the previous Sabbath was. If the previous Sabbath was on a Wednesday and here we are on a Friday, then I know that we're on work day 2. So we got 5 more days to go until the next, 4 more days until the next Sabbath. You have 6 work days, because I know the next Sabbath is going to be on that Wednesday. So I can basically give it to you on a day basis, but with this is amazing because it can give it to you up to the hour. And then using your hands as tools, which is on a whole nother level, like for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's remarkable how the Most High created us.
Yeah, really is. Really is. So yeah, I mean, if you're you know, as soon as the last or the 22nd, the Sabbath on the 22nd day of the lunar month, so after the 3rd Sabbath of the month, for the last week of the month, right around dawn, you can see the sun and the moon at the same time, and you can make the measurements. And if you do that consecutively for 3 or 4 days, even if you get a morning where it's cloudy and you can't see it, or 2 or 3 in a row, you've got all these calculations, and or you've got all these measurements that you can refer to calculations, and then look for the crescent after the day that you've calculated as new moon. Look for the crescent to confirm it, and boom.
Absolutely. All praises indeed.
Yeah. Did you want to look at this article here?
Yeah, we can you can dibble in it.
Yeah.
Dibble and dabble.
Yeah. Oh, this isn't an article. This is a video. I didn't even know that.
Oh, okay. 6 minutes. Let's get it.
Yeah. We'll check this out now.
Did you hit your when you hit share screen, did you hit the audio button?
Oh, hang on.
Yeah,
Audio.
unshare your screen and then go back to share screen, and at the bottom left there should be a box that says share audio.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll allow us to hear it.
Okay. There goes that now.
Yeah, now you see what I deal with all the time.
I know, right? Right. Share sound. There we go. Got it. All right. Cool. So here we go.
Jeff here. Today I want to talk about the luminaries, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and how they rotate around in the firmament above us. I've gone over the sun in the past, so you might know a little bit about this subject. The sun goes around in a circle, and it takes 24 hours for the sun to circle the flat earth in one day. And the sun's circles get bigger and smaller depending on the time of the year. In June, the sun is circling over the Tropic of Cancer. It's got a much tighter circle. In December, the sun is circling over the Tropic of Capricorn, so it's got a much bigger circle. And at the equinoxes, the sun is circling over the equator. Okay, equinox, equator. Now the moon also circles above the flat earth, but the moon is slightly slower than the sun. The moon takes 24 hours and 50 minutes to circle the flat earth. That's what's called a lunar day. It's slightly slower than the sun. So where the sun takes 24 hours to make one 360-degree circle, which is 15 degrees an hour, the moon takes 24 hours and 50 minutes to make one 360-degree circle, which equates to only 14.5 degrees per hour. So the moon, because it's slightly slower, it loses a half a degree on the sun per hour. So this half a degree per hour equals 12 degrees per day. So as the sun and the moon circle above in the firmament, the moon loses 12 degrees per day on the sun. And this 12-degree loss causes the lunar phases. So as you see here in this little animation, we've got the sun and the moon circling above, 1 hour at a time. And by the time the sun gets back to its original position at 12 noon, after one full day has gone by, the moon has lost 12 degrees on the sun. And this happens every day. And this loss of 12 degrees per day is what's going to cause the phases of the moon. So if you were to look up at the sky on day 1 at midnight in New Jersey, the moon would be here. And if you were to look up at the sky at the exact same time on day 2, the moon would be here. It's lost 12 degrees. It's 12 degrees further to the east. And if you were to look up at the sky at midnight on day 3, the moon would be 12 degrees further, and 12 degrees further, and so on and so forth. The moon loses 12 degrees per day, and this causes the phases of the moon. And I did my best to try to animate this for you so you could see it and understand it better. Now the stars are slightly different. There's something known as a sidereal day, which is slightly shorter than a solar day. A solar day is a true 24 hours. A sidereal day or a stellar day is what's slightly shorter by 4 minutes. A stellar day is only 23 hours and 56 minutes. So because it's 4 minutes faster than a regular day, this 4 minutes equates to 1 degree. So the stars all rotate around Polaris every single day, but because they're slightly faster than the sun, it gains 1 degree per day, and this causes the stars to shift 1 degree per day roughly, or roughly 7 degrees per week. So if you were to look up at the sky at the same time every day, they're going to be slightly different because they're shifting 1 degree every day. So here I've made a little animation of the Big Dipper in Polaris.
What'd you say?
Yeah. So this is how we can determine what time of the year it is by looking up at the stars.
Oh.
I've been waiting for this information. I haven't looked into it just yet because I'm still trying to master the basics, which is the moon's phases and understanding new moon day and Shabbat. So this is how, bro, thank you for this. This is exactly how we can figure out what time of the year it is for the feast.
Yep. And that's how basically on the Gregorian calendar the equinoxes are fixed because it's a solar calendar, right? So the equinoxes are fixed on the Gregorian calendar. With this calendar, with the Luni-Solar calendar, what you would do is the new moon that's closest to, now there's several different understandings on that. Some people will say the new moon after the equinox. Some people will just only go by the barley in Jerusalem. But my understanding is the new moon that's closest to the equinox is going to be the first new moon of the year. And how to determine the equinoxes right here with the stars. The stars determine where the when the equinox is. So
nice.
I'm not going to include all the rest of the stars in this because, you know, I'm not a computer whiz, but I can do the Big Dipper and Polaris. And every day it circles around Polaris. Polaris never moves. The North Star never moves. I know in my little animation it's bouncing around just a little bit here, but it's supposed to be constant. It never moves. It's a guide. So 1 rotation equals 1 stellar day. Now, because it gains 1 degree per day, if you were to look up at the sky at week 1, you're going to see this. And week 2, if you were to look up at the sky at the same time, it's going to be shifted 7 degrees. And week 3, it's going to be shifted another 7 degrees roughly. And week 4 and week 5. And throughout the year, the constellations will constantly shift because they shift 1 degree a day roughly. We have 365 days a year. So it's slightly less than 1 degree, but you get the point. This is how the constellations shift throughout the year. And this shift causes the constellations to be in a different spot throughout the year. And when this happens, you get fall, winter, spring, summer. The 4 seasons. This
I know
symbol
y'all
is an
seen that
ancient
picture
symbol.
before.
You might know it as the swastika, but what it really means is the 4 seasons, because if you were to look at the Big Dipper throughout the year, this is what it's going to look like. Constantly pointing to the North Star, which never moves. So you got your spring, summer, fall, and winter.
Wow.
Unbelievable stuff. And it never stops. It just rotates around.
That was fire.
Yeah. All so your spring equinox is going to be right here. That's your spring equinox. And just to be clear, the swastika was not just a German Nazi thing. I mean, many cultures all over the world, for this very reason, had swastika symbols.
Exactly.
The Native Americans, Indians, it just goes on and on. Lots of other Europeans and just Germans, you know, and it's for this very reason that the swastika was such a prominent symbol in so many cultures all over the world, because it shows you when the seasons are.
I'm gonna add this to the Luni-Solar playlist on a YouTube channel.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
shoot me the link once we finish this video. Shoot me the link, and then I'll also add this video as one of the ending videos. We'll do it like that. Have a lot of information for everybody if they want to go back and watch it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm down. This is awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a little information there, how we can, just through observation by using our eyes and our fingers, you know, obviously a ruler or a measuring tape would be a little bit easier, just like an app on the phone is a little bit easier. But you know, I mean, at some point we're gonna have to do this without the aid of such tools. So,
Right.
You know, it's good to know this.
Quick question. A point I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Not everybody is very mathematically inclined, and even as simple as, you know, the 0.5, you know, the 1 degree or the 5 degree,
Yeah,
or the 7 degrees for the stars. Some people are just like very like, I don't know, like they like it to be broken down simply.
Mhm.
For them, right?
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. So when you're talking about the new moon day, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that the moon, they're actually the same thing, but yeah. But we know that the moon is going to gradually gain light for half the month, and then it's going to gradually lose light for half the month.
Mm-hmm.
And once it loses all of its light, immediately it's going to begin to gain light again.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that the moon is going to gain light, you don't need to wait until you see it to count it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Like, all right, can you go to YouTube real quick and just type in like a clock? I just want to get some type of video of a clock where the hands are moving, right? We know that a clock is going to stay in motion forever. It's never going to stop. And I ain't talking about if the battery dies or if it breaks. I'm just talking about perpetual motion here, right? A clock is going to consistently move. Yes, analog clock, perfect. So you see the hand moving, right? We know that the hand is going to continue moving no matter what. Now, let's just call New Moon Day, for time purposes, when the hand hits the number 6, right? It's coming up to the number 6. So it's losing light up until the number 6, and we know that after the number 6 is going to gain light. Now, cover your hand over the 6. Even though you can't see the hand moving because you have your hand covering the clock's hand, you still know that that clock hand is moving because it's a clock and this is what it's supposed to do. And the same principle, the same concept applies to the moon and its light. No matter what you do or what anybody else does, it's going to gain light for half the month and lose light for half the month. So after it hits the 12, you know that it's going to eventually, go off to the various different times. Same with the light. You don't necessarily need to see the conjunction with your own eyes to confirm whether or not that's New Moon Day or not. Because if you do that, in some instances, it's going to make you become a day late. And your entire count, your entire calculator is going to be thrown off. Your Sabbath is going to fall a day late. Your next New Moon Day is going to fall a day late. Your feast days are going to fall a day late. Your New Year is going to fall a day late. Everything is going to be shifted. And then if you continue this process over various years, right? Let's just say in 1 year's time, you are roughly doing that. Let's go half the amounts of, let's go half the months, right? So each year you're going to roughly be ahead by 6 days, right? If that's being conservative. But if you multiply that by 10, so in 10 years, you're going to be ahead 60 days, right? Do we take it upon ourselves to wait until we exactly see that second hand on a clock hit a certain point to determine what time it is? The second hand for us most of the time doesn't matter. We only pay attention to what the minute and the hour hands are doing. And if you're looking at the moon and comparing it to a moon, your hour hand is, I would say, the moon itself. So the full circle, right? You can see the outline even when it's like a half moon or whatever. And then your minute hand is the illumination. So if it's 12:30, where the hour hand is on the 12 and the minute hand is on the 6, it's creating a half moon essentially, right? We know that that's Shabbat. We don't need to worry about what the second hand is. We know that the half moon is going to dictate when Shabbat is. And we know that approximately 7 days after that, you're going to have a full moon, which is the next Shabbat. Then it's going to lose light at the same rate. It's not changing. And so 7 days later, you're going to get a half moon again. And then you're going to get 7 days later, you're going to get that small little bit of a crescent. The moon is a clock. The Most High's entire calendar system, the sun, the moon, the stars, all the luminaries act as a timepiece. So if you didn't understand any of the degrees and the measurements, I understand, because I am a very simple person when it comes to trying to understand different concepts. But you can't not understand a clock. We've all, a clock is, learning time is one of the most fundamental things we're taught in school. Think of the moon as a clock. And this is how we keep the Most High's time. I hope that makes sense.
That's what it is, man. It's just the clock,
That's how I look at it. But,
and it's actually super simple. What makes it seem complicated is that we have the Gregorian calendar is actually what's complicated, because it's it's not linked to nature other than the sun in any way.
Copy.
It doesn't have, you know, the proper it doesn't have the proper cycles, right? So, and it's all out of whack. You know, you got this month is 31 months, this one's 28, sometimes 29, blah, blah, all this stuff. It's all out of whack. None of it makes any sense, and you have to memorize the Gregorian calendar and all of the nonsense that's involved, you know.
Right.
And then because it's so complicated, our minds automatically think that calendars must be complicated, right? Because that's what we learned. It took us years to learn it. You know, when we're little kids, you don't just learn it in a week. You know, I mean, it takes you a couple of years before you finally know how the Gregorian calendar works. You know,
Right.
And it's because it's complicated. Now I can show my kids this, and they can understand it in a month or two. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because it's easy. You just look up and it's a half moon. All right, we know what day it is, right?
Exactly.
And as far as calculating the conjunction, that's really not all that complicated either. It seems like it to us because we've already got in our mind that calendars are complicated, right? And in a lot of situations, the more complicated something is, the more intellectual it seems, right?
Right.
So, like with you know, all these different complex calculations and stuff, it seems so intellectual because you got all these different variables, and you gotta get the cosine of this and cancel out these and all this kind of stuff, you know, determine B or whatever the case is, right? So we're programmed from a fairly young age that anything intellectual is complex and complicated, and it's not always the case. I mean, certainly it is in some cases, yeah, but it's not always the case, and especially with things that we need to know to live our lives by, such as when the Shabbats are in order to keep the Sabbaths and the holy days. You know, it's not going to be something that's complicated. You know, I'd say by the time someone's 6 or 7, they're going to be mature enough and intellectually developed enough to be able to understand it. You know what I mean? So
Well said. Well said. Well said. It's harder to understand something new if the new information, even if it's the correct information, contradicts what you already know. So you're taking extra effort and time to deprogram yourself from what you know, to now reprogram yourself to whatever the new information is giving you.
And that's the thing too. You said that great, like, because you have to first, before you can even get this, you have to first unlearn the whole Gregorian calendar before you can really understand this. Because if you try to impose, and that's I think the problem that a lot of people have, is they're trying to impose the Gregorian calendar onto the Most High's calendar, and it causes them to short circuit. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I get it. I was there at one point, so you know, I totally get it.
Absolutely.
So,
but I really hope this video helped some of you guys, especially those of you who are looking into the Luni-Solar and just having a little bit of trouble understanding some various aspects of it. For those of you who've already adopted the Luni-Solar but was curious as to how to do it for yourself without looking at an app, or getting information from someone else who keeps it, who's told you when the Sabbath and new moon days are. It's time for us to start taking it upon ourselves to do our due diligence to keep the Most High's appointed times and feasts. And he's given us the tools. He's given us the tools. Yeah. Whether you're using a ruler, whether you're using your hand, whether you are doing it the method that I was doing it, where you're keeping up with when new moon day begins and when the Sabbaths are, and then you're keeping up with the numerical count to kind of make sure that you're staying on track to the day. Whatever you do, however you do it, just keep doing it and make sure that you're taking responsibility for it. Because if you forget or you lose track, you know, because we're getting to a point where we're not going to have technology readily available to us to be able to keep these things. So learn how to do it now. So when we don't have the luxury of these, you know, these things, we can still keep the accurate times, because you're going to be held accountable to the Father, to the Creator, you know, when your time is called, and you can't get to the judgment seat. And he says, well, why didn't you keep my Sabbaths, my new moons, my feast days? And you say, oh, well, I didn't have my tablet. I didn't have my phone. That's not going to be acceptable. But, you know, that's just me. I hope this was edifying. Brother, you got any last words?
Yeah, I think we'll end this with a scripture from Psalm 89, 37. And it says, it shall be established forever as the moon, as a faithful witness in heaven. So, the moon is the faithful witness, you know.
Con. All praises. All praises. Wow. I had actually saw that that scripture when I did a quick Luni-Solar study with a sister recently. And that scripture was so profound to me at that time, and even more so now, because, you know, a witness is someone who confirms something, right? And so an eternal witness means it's continually confirming forever the Most High. Bam. Look at that. Wow. Wow. Well, family, if you have questions, drop a comment, like this video, share this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel, man. The more people who get this information, the more people who are not allowed, but able to come into the knowledge of the truth on various matters. I'm not saying that we know everything, but the things that we have learned and studied and practiced and put into scrutiny, right? All of those things is what we're sharing with you, so that you don't necessarily have to go through all the hurdles and run into all the dead ends that we did, right? We give you the uncut, you know, bare bones, everything you need to get that understanding. And what you do with it is up to you, right? We got in the car, we went to the racetrack, we drove the track, we did the laps, we mapped it out, and we were giving you the map so you know where the turns are. That's all. But with that being said, family, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tonight was a lot shorter than normally, so if you hate long videos, then lucky you. If not, then, you know, it'll probably be longer next week. But not too long of a video. But that being said, family, shalom, shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, brother. I love you.
Love you too, bro.
Gotta get ready for the work in the AM. I still got my shirt on. Look at that. All right. Be safe, family.
1, 4, 4. Let's get it. Solemn prophet. Babylon is falling, the Most High is setting the proper siege. The